Well, folks, sometimes the best ideas are not your idea. Let me just explain that. About a year ago, I came up with this really great idea for Chicago and the world, which was the idea of unpaving a lot of the asphalt and the concrete that we've spread all over this country, and I was going to call it unpaved 50% because I wanted to use that number. Take whatever we have in a city like Chicago, unpaved 50% of it so the water could percolate back into the soil and stop running off and gathering chemicals as it does, as we've talked about for many years on the show. And I thought, wow, this is a great idea. And I proposed it to Suzanne Malik McKenna, former director of the Department of the Environment of the City of Chicago, and Sandra Henry, who was the former director of sustainability. And they both said, wow, this is a great idea. Well, guess what? I found out that idea was already started 15 years ago. And that's what we're going to talk about on today's show. And that's why I'm bringing in the two people you see there at the bottom right and the bottom left. On the right is Katya Reyna. She is the program director for Depave.org. And she's in Oregon, and you guys were ahead of my curve, that's for sure, Katya. Mary Pat McGuire on your left is from the Water Lab at the University of Illinois. She is an associate professor of landscape architecture and a licensed landscape architect. So we understand why you want to do that. Well, let's start with Katya. The group depave.org, you say, started about 15 years ago. So what have you been doing in 15 years?
So I've been with Depave for the past 3 years, and as far as I know, for the past 15 years, we've just been ripping up asphalt and replacing it with green spaces, depending on what that community needs.
Well, it shouldn't surprise me that it would have started in a place like Oregon because you guys do a lot of great green stuff over there. Well, what drew you personally to this organization?
So I studied urban planning at University of Illinois in Chicago. That's where I'm from, and then I came out to Oregon to study landscape architecture. And so I got my master's in landscape architecture, and after I was done, I wasn't really interested in working in a firm and wasn't really interested in building gardens for rich people. And I really wanted to do something that was community driven and community oriented, and was also public. And Depave kind of gives me the opportunity to do all that. I get to work directly with communities and different partners and sort of see projects in every phase.
So I'm wondering, after 15 years, haven't you depaved all of Portland by now?
No, not even
No, I can imagine not. Now, Mary Pat, so I have to ask you, did you know about this before you got the idea for Depave Chicago? What is the genesis of your work here in Illinois?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we're all coming up with this great idea. No, I didn't know about Depave in Portland until maybe just a few years ago. I also had my big revelation about 7 years ago living here in Chicago. I work on a lot of stormwater and urban flooding issues. And as a landscape architect, I look at the conditions of the urban ground, and I started putting two and two together. And through a lot of mapping and modeling, realizing that we need to retrofit the urban surface of Chicago in order to address these larger climate and flooding issues. And so I started calling my own work Depave Chicago. That was my more provocative label for the work that I do, the research and the teaching that I do around ground and surface design. And then I started writing about that and looking around and seeing what other people, who else had this idea. And I came across the Depave organization in Portland.
And we should probably explain why is it the U of I Water Lab is heading this.
Yeah, well, that's been also the title of my design research studio. Again, I work on water issues in cities, and my work is in this area called water urbanism, how we see cities through their water systems, and how we have to redesign hydrology back into cities. And I could tell you a lot more about that, but the short story is that I again started to realize that in order to rebuild hydrologic function back into cities, we had to restore soils, and we had to get rid of this asphalt barrier between us and the land itself. So I see depaving as a great tool for both unearthing our soils, but also kind of reconnecting with land. And we need a lot of tools to do it. It's, we need communities to understand that this is the potential for remaking and sort of regenerating urban ecology in their neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So,
In one of the articles you sent me said that we have we have impermeable surface in the United States that is the equivalent of the state of Ohio in size. And that's terrifying, actually. In fact, let me show this, because you can find this at the Water Lab site, thewaterlab.org. And it's an interactive map. And if I just click here, and this is City of Chicago, what are folks seeing here? Well, basically, when you see something dark, that's paved over, isn't it?
that is all the pavement in Chicago. It's primarily asphalt. That may include concrete as well, but that is a pavement map where we've taken just the GIS layer. So it's a data layer of just pavement from the Chicago Regional Land Cover data set, as you can see referenced there. And so it's basically, you can read the whole city of Chicago just through its pavement system. It's not that surprising for a large industrial city like Chicago or many cities across the country. But Chicago happens to be a real king of pavement. We have 30% of our surface of our city is just pavement. So if you gathered all that pavement, it would fill up just a third of the city. And that's just not a good painting for the future of our urban land. So so not even the buildings are in there or nothing else. That's just the roads and the parking lots and all of the paved surface of the city of Chicago.
And we wonder why cities that are not even on floodplains tend to flood. It's because we have not managed this at all over the decades and decades. And now this is a weird way to retrofit, it seems to me, because, and we'll go into this in more detail on Sunday's show, but you draw communities in this, and sometimes you do it low tech, which with crowbars and sledgehammers, don't you, Katya?
Yeah, not even sledgehammers. All our participants just use pry bars. We pre-cut the asphalt into smaller chunks with saws, and then the volunteers can actually use pry bars to rip it up.
And well, you know what? Even worse, it seems to me that you tell them, just use your fists and break the rock with your tears, okay? And maybe that'll work. Mary Pat and Katya, I'm looking very much to talking to you on Sunday, and I hope all of you watching will go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. You can also watch us on Facebook and on Twitter this Sunday, 9 a.m. Central, which means Katya on the West Coast has to get up frightfully early to be on the show. So sorry about that, Katya. But 9 a.m. Central is when we will start. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki, and we will see you then.